Okay, hey, this is Mark coming to you from Baker's Greenacres. Today's the 15th. It's a Saturday, and it's afternoon. Not exactly sure what time it is. I know I've had my lunch though. And what I'm doing here is one of my favorite things to do is to make compost. And it's kind of a process. It's like a year-round process. So these are my cows, and there's really only 2 cows there. The others are steers. The cows are the brown ones. They're Jerseys. And then my bull that I used to have was black. So these are his calves. And what this is you're looking at, these cows have had 2 each. And, you know, a cow generally has a calf every year, 1 calf. And you keep a bull so that you can get them impregnated so that they'll give milk. That's the whole idea. And I lost my bull. It's a long story. Maybe I'll tell you about it sometime. But what I want to talk to you about is the compost making process. And like with most things that we do here, everything has multi-use. So, like, I cut hay off of this property. I have about 55 acres of hay ground, they call it. You know, it's suitable for cutting hay. And then the hay I store in this barn, right? And I could feed every bit of that hay to cattle and pigs. I can. This year I still had about 25 left over, maybe 30 from last year. And last year I didn't cut everything that I had because I kind of ran out of time and I was doing other things. This year I got a little bit more serious about it, and I've got almost all of my first cutting in, and I did really well. I did really well on it. Really nice stuff. So then I bring it out here and I'll plop it down in a feeder, and they eat it, of course, and then they mill around in this little barnyard here. This is off the back of the barn, and that's where we milk through that door. And they'll deposit this manure everywhere. And so this is about a year's worth of manure that I've taken off. Now, I have this tractor that I use with a loader on it, so I can scrape all this stuff up. There was a great big pile here. And then I have my trusty 1966 Chevrolet C60 dump truck, which I bought when I got out of the service to help me move from my last duty assignment here. And I just got through painting it. I did a real nice job painting on it. Me and my sons did it. Didn't do any engine work or anything like that to it. It's really solid truck. And it's got a dump box on it. But you may not have that in the homesteading business. But you might have a wheelbarrow and a shovel. And you could pretty easily have a cow or 2. And you might not have a bull, but you might have a neighbor that has one. Or you could go get yourself smart on artificial insemination, which is not that hard to do. It really isn't. I've never taken the class, but I know people that have, and I'm going to. Because keeping a bull is kind of, if you don't have more than about 5 or 6 cows, it's kind of not cost effective to do it. It's better to AI, artificial insemination. And there's a process to go through it. I'm going to learn how to do it because it's one of those things that I'll have time to do homesteading that I really didn't have to do when I was commercial farming, which I still am. I haven't quite made the transition yet, but this manure, you go by farms sometimes and you see huge piles of it. It's almost like they wish somebody would come and take it away. And I would if they fed their animals, you know, legitimate feed, and they're not feeding them genetically modified organisms and things like that, and there's not a whole bunch of chemicals and stuff in that manure. If there is, I have no use for it. I don't want to put it on my ground because I don't want to grow vegetables in it, because I don't want it to ultimately wind up in me or my kids. So we just don't get manure from anybody else. When I first moved here and we started composting, we did. And it was an effort to make our fields more fertile, And so we did that. But I don't do it anymore, and I don't need to anymore, because I can generate enough manure here to make enough compost for my produce area, and anything left over, then I can I can sell that. And a good quality compost, there's no substitute for it. There isn't, because what we have is we have cellulose material that we've run through this right here. We've run through this beautiful system right here, right? And once it goes through her system generates the bacteria to break down that cellulose. And also, when it comes out of her, it's not completely broke down, so there's a lot of bacteria in it still. And then usually I pile it up here, and then I'll turn it, aerate it so it can keep going, and it'll break that down completely. Also the bedding that's in here, it makes a really nice compost. A real good compost makes nutrient available to whatever you're going to grow in it. But it's real important to us, if we're going to grass feed our animals, that we don't want genetically modified stuff in their feed, because we don't want it in us if we can help it. So our compost will come out of here, and it will be non-GMO compost. And that's something that a person should look into if they're interested in, overall long-term health for whatever you're going to grow in it. Low battery. Whether it's tomatoes or whatever you're going to grow in it. Because something can be organic, have that USDA organic stamp on it, but it's full of genetically modified organisms or GMOs. And GMOs is what you want to stay away from for a couple different reasons. They genetically modify things like corn so that they can spray things like glyphosate on it, and the glyphosate will not kill it, but it will kill everything else. And then when you eat that corn, or that silage goes into your cows, and then your cows provide milk for you, that glyphosate is going into you. And glyphosate is something that you shouldn't put in you, And of course the USDA is saying that it's okay, but let's use our heads here. It's not okay, and you don't want that. That's why so many people are gluten intolerant. They're not gluten intolerant, they're glyphosate intolerant. And it screws up their system so bad that they can't digest their food. And they eat something, they wind up with a lot of stuff bouncing around in their belly that doesn't, their system can't handle, and then they get sick. They're gluten intolerant. It's not gluten, it's glyphosate. You're glyphosate intolerant, or glyphosate. Glyphosate. That's the terminology for Roundup. Anyway, I don't want to go too long on this, and talking bad about Monsanto can probably get me demonetized too, but I'm gonna go from this phase over to the next phase. I'm going to be taking the truck over to my area where I dump it, and then I pile it back up. And that's also my area where I make biochar to put in it. And when I get over there, I'll show you where I dump it, and I'll show you kind of how I pile it. I mean, I've shown a lot of the stuff, how it works in the winter time, but it is July now, so this is kind of summer operations. This is something that typically I do a little earlier, but I've been awful busy with it. If you follow this, you can see how I am recycling nutrient on this farm. So I cut hay down off the back. The hay is like solar collectors that picks up all the energy from the sun. And then I store that in the barn. And the only way I can convert it back is to either burn it, which isn't going to do me any good that I can think of, or give it to the cows slowly. And then the cows are going to give me things like, they're going to give me manure, which is good, but they're also going to give me milk, and they're going to give me beef. The calves that come from these cows are not suitable for us to milk, so we do beef them. It's Mark from Baker's Greenacres. I'm going to sign off before I hit 10 minutes.